communist system, with a totalitarian system, with a capitalist system, and 3. They're a hybrid. Mm-hmm. That's why they work so well. That's the only way you can have an ultimate power to control the world. The United States doesn't have that. Now, the United States, to actually match that and have a fighting chance, would have to have something similar. And it looked, and I say this because it looks like that's what the United States is trying to do. Yeah. They're trying to move, keep a capitalist system in check, have a communist type of system in here, and a totalitarian system. And they're doing the same fucking thing, just with an American flavor.
Yes, you're right. I mean, well, we've talked about, like, even with the trace testing and, like, you know, how really there's Chinese ideals and surveillance that's happening in the U.S., but we don't see Americans complaining about it, yet they talk all the time about how China will do all this to their people when the same thing's happening here, right? That's one aspect. The business aspect, like we've been talking about, they've been nationalizing their companies over the last 2 years. We've been nationalizing our industries now. They've had their CEOs that were asked to step down and leave or got killed, right, over the last 2 years. We just had a mass exodus of CEOs ourselves. So, I mean, I don't think that would be out of the picture, Mike. But I do think that we would probably see this happen over, you know, a period of 10 years or so. Like, I reflect back after the Great Depression. So 1929 happened, right? And then you had Germany during that whole time in the 20s was already going through what it was going through. But for the rest of the world, I feel like it took us 10 years or so to really see World War II start to play out. And then Germany didn't make its first invasions until what, like 1948, 41 or something like that, right?
Well, 1938, they already were starting to unify Austria, Hungary, with their, you know, Germanic peoples. They started to do those unifications. Mm-hmm. They already are pushing the propaganda of Germany first. They started to, you know, they took over the Rhineland with no pushback.
Yep.
They were doing all of these things. Germany started to build up their military. That's what happened first, right? That's the first shift, was, you know, building up. Exactly what we're doing. Building up, nationalizing, taking over Volkswagen, Mercedes, all of these companies, taking them over, the state taking over it to retool them. You know, push. That's why the Volkswagen Beetle was created. The Volkswagen stands for car of the people. Mm-hmm. You know, Hitler wanted that to, you know, so that Germans had a mode of transportation because cars were expensive because of the Depression.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a way of nationalizing, right? It's like right now, America's trying to figure out cash for clunkers, mm-hmm. right? Putting those systems, it's the same scenario.
Yeah.
You know, so they're doing this, you know, Nazi Germany did that, rebuilding their infrastructure, new highways, the Autobahn, they started creating that, and then they started positioning the image. That's why, you know, like the Olympics in Berlin.
That's crazy how the Olympics are coming up in Beijing. That's interesting, too.
No, they're actually coming out, isn't it? No, it's Tokyo.
Tokyo, sorry.
It's Tokyo.
My bad.
Yeah, no, Beijing did
Beijing was the last one, I think, right? Was that the last one?
It was second to the last. So no, wait. Theirs was actually the third. It was 3 times before. The last one was Rio. Before that one was London. The London one, bro. If you look into that shit is Illuminati all over the place.
Is that the one Burke had where they had like the nurses out on the bed and stuff on the floor, and they had like the one that looked like a little needle?
Yep, and that's, bro, it's a bunch of shit. They do all types of, like, creepy stuff with children, creepy stuff with power, and, you know, they have a lot of people with one eye, and it's just fucked up. That whole thing, and, like, doing, like, 666s, it's just really twisted.
People love that shit, dude. They don't even know.
Yeah, you know, if you believe in it or not is one thing, but I think, you know, if you don't believe in it, like you don't believe in that occult stuff, I still believe that people use that as a placebo effect.
Yeah.
You know, either or is being used for power. So, but, you know, going away from that. So Germany did all of that until they actually started to invade. And they only invaded what they saw that they wouldn't get pushed back. So Poland, right? They did Poland, and then from there is when they really got aggressive. but it was like 10 years until that point.
Yeah. So we're like right now. That's why I'm saying I feel like we're in this like 1930s. We're in like 1930, 1931 maybe. Like we probably still have another. Even if you look at that, they had another 15 years until the U.S. fully entered the war. So we're probably looking at this. That's why I do feel like this is the start of that era, because the dollar now, I mean, starting now, right now, is on its inflationary track, right? Until a few months ago, we knew there wasn't a super big deal with oil, right? Oil now is at risk, right? So like, I feel like we're just now starting the true currency race, or the race that will lead us into global supremacy. And China, I saw a tweet this morning from this page, Gold Telegraph, I follow, their good gold page. They just posted a headline: China's central bank says to implement monetary policy more creatively. And they're proposing this channel. So what comes first? An announcement of a digital currency or a gold bond? And you and I have talked about, and I got this from Kaiser Report that I've been watching. He says, and I really do think it, the D-Day equivalent will be when they announce their official launch of their digital currency backed by gold of some sort, right? And then the new economic circles start. Who are you going to trade with? Germany. Germany's already sided with China. They've got Huawei. They've already partnered with Huawei. They're building all the 5G infrastructure there. Who are you going to partner with? Russia. Who are you going to partner with in that side of the world? Which system of SWIFT? Are you going to use the old U.S. SWIFT system with the dollar? It's dying. Or are you going to use our new system, which is backed money, sound money, credit rated? Iran's going to be like, cool. They're all, and then that's when I feel like we're going to start to see the new alliances come up with this new conflict. But the question is, do we get there? Are the old conflicts going to look like the future conflicts, right? That's what I wonder. Is it,
I don't know. We don't know. We just know through history, right? Right now we're, like you're saying, we're like in the 30s. Well, Great Depression happened in 1928.
Mm-hmm.
That shit lasted for 10 years.
Yeah.
This is a start. And when the Great Depression started, it wasn't even known if it was a depression, really. They just knew it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know it was that bad until it started to, like, unravel.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a year, 2 years, and it really got bad. Right now, that could be the case, right? It's slowly, trickling. People still figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know the complexity. It's like cancer. You don't know how bad it is until you go through the stages.
They have no clue, bro. This just came out. I posted this yesterday. So this is the St. Louis Fed GDP forecast. They're predicting GDP for Q2 in the U.S. is going to be a negative 48% number, bro.
Yes, but see, all these numbers,
people don't know yet, like, what this actually means, right? Like, they're not going to see it for a year.
Check this out, right? This is what I think. China's leading all of this very well. They're positioning themselves. They know that they're deeply in debt. They know that they can't flinch because they'll lose step with trying to take over world dominance. So the United States is trying to keep up. So if we were consultants for, let's say, the government, right, the State Department,
yeah,
we will probably be saying, yeah, you need to start nationalizing the corporations, start towing them in line. Because if not, they'll be bought out by the Chinese, because that's a problem. We are not embedded in China the same way as China's embedded in us.
Mm-hmm.
They're in everything.
Yeah.
Everything. When they talk about Operation Mockingbird, they have their own Operation Mockingbird within Hollywood.
Yeah.
We only have two narratives in America. We have American narrative and we have the Chinese narrative. And, and they're subliminally similar, targeted in a certain way. That's why you see there's some movies that lean towards ideology of China. They control a lot of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we're so capitalist.
Yeah.
We sell ourselves. We're prostituting ourselves all the time. China, they prostitute themselves differently for their own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
We don't fucking get any benefit. So it's different.
Yeah.
I guess as being consultants, we would be saying these pros and cons. Hey, you would have to start nationalizing, because that's the only way you could actually stop subversions, right? You could stop China from continuously pumping money in this capitalist system that's easy manipulated, right? Not only that, you would have to retool factories, which is happening, right? Factories are being retooled. Now Trump has put all these CEOs in check, and he has put them in line. They're all falling in line, and they are all starting to understand that they need to follow Trump and what he says. If he says you have to do this, you have to do it, right? He showed that. Yeah. He showed his teeth to them, right? You gotta fucking do ventilators, do them now. So they're getting used to the fact that they're gonna start taking orders from him. So what does that already? He already took the power. He showed, hey, I'm the one you're gonna fucking listen to. Yeah. Now, when I need you to start fucking building weapons, start building jets and all of the tanks, that'll be set in motion. So we won't lose. We won't lose those steps, right? Operation Warp Speed, right? Yep. Was that it's that you could easily duplicate that in all the other industries that are coming down the pipeline. We already got our oil reserves full. So for war, we're good. Now we'll have natural gas completely topped off too, because now natural gas is falling. So the next crash right now is not oil, it's natural gas. Mm-hmm. That's going to go into negative probably in over a couple days. Natural gas is going to be a huge issue. That'll continue. So the United States will continue to position itself for a war footing. But in the meantime, there needs to be things implemented with the economy temporarily, because I think Trump is looking at Putin as a model. Yeah. If we go into a world war, Trump has an opportunity to be like Roosevelt. He could have a third term if push comes to shove. Mm-hmm. He most likely will have a second term because come on, the situation we're in, it's it'll be really hard for him to lose. Everything's possible, but Biden, I don't know, but he's positioning himself to be president for the next 4 years, and I think he's positioning himself for more than 4 years. Mm-hmm. Because the only way that you could really get through with a plan to dominate would be for more than 4 years, like Putin does. Putin has 20 years under his belt, maybe 15, 20 already. He's done a great job to push his plan in the way. And I think, Trump's going to try to do the same. So he needs a world war to happen. Because then that incentivizes him to continue to be in power. The worst thing to do is switch presidents in a world war. Unless the president's super incapable of leading in a war. So, yeah. Because Xi Jinping is not going to step down. That's why it goes back to this makes a case for totalitarianism and shit like that. So this makes a good case. A free society is only good if the world is free completely, and is not, and the power that controls the whole world is not opposing force. Right. If the opposing force is a totalitarian country, and you already are similar to a totalitarian country, then the only winning force is a totalitarian country. Because if you step away from being totalitarian, you're gonna lose. Right. You can't. There's no way to fight against a system like China that has a leader with a Politburo that's pretty. Even though it's divided within itself, but they unify when push comes to shove. It's hard to break that. That's why China has led through many generations. People don't understand. Yeah, the 90s, China did poorly. I mean, not the 90s. I mean, in the 20th century, China did poorly when it came to showing force in the world as being a force to reckon with. But in the 1800s, the 1700s, they were one of the world powers. People don't get that. They were one of the world powers. They fought against fucking the British Empire. They fought hand in hand. And the British Empire had a huge navy, which is what really helped them. But China don't give a fuck. Yeah. China they'll go to toe with you. That's in their blood. So the only way to actually meet power would be to be a little totalitarian, and that's what the United States is doing. Now with the currency, I don't know what the fuck they're trying to do. Because okay, if they come with a new currency, how are you gonna gain trust of the world with a new currency? You have to implement it through force, and the only way you can implement something through force is if you're an ally or you're an enemy. And the only way you could get that really going is with a world war. Germany, you're gonna have to choose. Are you gonna take China's side or are you gonna take America's side? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
That's where you really could fucking, because if not, that means that you're gonna get bombed. You're gonna get attacked. You're not with us, you're against us, you're gonna get hit. You can't do that now. You could throw economic sanctions, but come on. This world is too globalist to work. Germany is self-sufficient more than the majority of the world.
Yeah.
Their economy is based off of small businesses and skilled employees. That's a skilled fucking society. They're self-sufficient. But how can you pressure them in a world war? So I just keep thinking that that's where we're going towards. It's inevitable. It's the same thing. It's like the depression is inevitable. You can't stop it.
No.
Inevitable.
Yeah.
I keep fucking that word up.
That's all right. So this chart paints your point perfectly, Mike, is that China really only during the 20th century had been, hadn't been at heights of its empire as it had been in the past. Because if you look here, it had always been really considered one of the leading world powers up until 1850, going into and what's kind of interesting is this is when the Industrial Revolution happened, right? So the beneficiaries of the Industrial Revolution was really the West. It was the U.S. It was Britain. It was, so that's probably why we just jetted right up to the top here. Was the Industrial Revolution, whereas China kind of.
Well, that's the thing, right? The Industrial Revolution shifted the world into a new chapter. And with that, it was like there was a multiplicable system of power, right? So now having electricity and having industry being the way it is, fuel and all of that, that gives tremendous power. So that's why you had all of these nations emboldened to take over the world. Mm. Now we have technology as an AI. We have all of this fucking crazy technology that's even wilder. So that gives tremendous power. That's why China has that open source. They steal what we call steal. They don't call that stealing. Mm-hmm. So I gotta say what Americans and capitalists think as stealing technology. They look at it as like, no, this is for everybody. But it's for everybody because at the end of the day, China is everybody. Mm-hmm. So the government of China is like, yeah, let it be free because it's mine.
Yeah.
America and the West, the government isn't a totalitarian system, so you need patents and you need that type of system of protection.
Copyright cartels.
Yeah, because it's corporations that own property. Yeah. But if the government was to be the owner, then it would be open source as well, because that's what you want. That's the benefit of it.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a shift in power. China is, to be real, man, China's leading the way except for fucking militarily. Militarily, we're stronger when it comes to our equipment.
The other thing that people don't factor is that we are going through the next industrial revolution right now. This is the tech and that's what I try to get my point across to people, and I don't think they understand that sometimes, is that we are going through the next industrial revolution. It's just going to be in digital now, right? The next industrial revolution is data. Data is the new oil. We've talked about this. It's tech. So it would align with this thesis of shifting world powers primarily around these industrial revolutions, and that is going on right now. It also aligns with the change in the reserve currency and the monetary system. That usually all gets changed up with a change in world power, typically from an industrial revolution. And the industrial revolution, like, people are stuck in their head with the last one with like Rockefeller and stuff. But like, if you look before that, there was industrial revolutions. They weren't industrial, but they were new technologies that disrupted society as in itself, right? And that was a revolution that changed business, the economy from there on out. The internet is just that. We've only been in this experiment arguably since, maybe the mid 2000s, once tech platforms, everything started getting really good. So
after the dot-com bubble.
And that's what I try to paint the picture to people with wealth transfers too. Wealth transfers typically take place only during these periods, during these industrial revolutions. That's why John Rockefeller was able to get so wealthy off of the last one. And so was Carnegie, and so was all of these guys, because there was an industrial revolution that was going on. They were able to form a business around that that new resource, right? Oil, steel, that made oil, allowed machinery to make steel better and everything, right? And there was a massive wealth transfer that happened with that. We are going through the same thing right now. That's why when I do preach about like cryptos or Bitcoin or Monero, trying to get people in a future mindset, a long-term mindset, is that you have to realize that these are not just currencies. These are protocols. They are pieces of technology that will be built on top of, and they will be the only things used in a fully tech world, because that's the only money you can use in that world. You can't use the dollar because it's not programmable. You need programmable money. So when I talk about the wealth transfer that will happen now, I'm talking about the fact that there's a scarce item like gold, right? Bitcoin, Monero, whatever crypto that exists that is used, it's scarce as long as there's a fixed supply. And we don't see it now, but 25 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, when we've passed that tech revolution, when we're in it, we're fully engulfed in it, everything we do, I think we're going to look back and we're going to be like, holy shit, these currencies and these systems that we thought we knew the value to before, we had no idea how big of a deal it actually was. Because it's not until you're spending micro satoshis to freaking go open your hotel door room or turn your lights on for a certain amount of time, or like, pay tolls and stuff, that you realize how much people have to spend this stuff in order to operate in that system. And it all comes down to the shift and the revolution. Like, this is the resource that fuels the actual technology and platforms that will live online in the digital revolution, in the digital world. And I think that's why China is so big on crypto mining. And I think that's why Xi Jinping, as a smart man, says that China will become a leader in blockchain technologies. That's what I would tell the US right now. You want to stay competitive? You have to digitize the dollar. You have to either you do that, or you're like Putin, where you understand these technologies and you're like, we may not waste our time even creating a Putin dollar, because we know that that's not going to stand at the end of the day, right? So you have to go digital with the currency, and we have to really loosen the laws, man. And that's the problem with the U.S. just being a dinosaur, is that the reason why we were able to be the leaders in tech is because we had light laws and we allowed entrepreneurs and innovators to be creative and innovate, and we funded that innovation, and Silicon Valley really came out of that, right? But look at us right now, especially in the blockchain industry. People are not starting businesses in America because it's too complex, it's too complicated. I don't want to deal with the laws and everything. They're going to Malta, they're going to China, they're going to France. They're mostly going to Europe right now, a lot in France and stuff. So, it's I think we're just witnessing history. Like, I really think we're just watching a repeat of what has happened before. And
yeah, it is a repeat of the late 1800s. It's a repeat. It's a repeat, but the thing is, since time flies now, right? Time flies because we have so much. We live in a fast-paced world. So the time it took in the late 1800s and early 1900s to go through all those steps, we're doing it at warp speed. Pun intended, right? We're doing things really quickly. So when you're going fast, you have to have reflexes, and I think United States' reflexes aren't that fast, because there's so much conflict, and the United States is divided. That's another weakness we have. We're a divided nation. So that's why all of this needs to happen negatively, right? It needs to happen because I think it's coming to that point that we're going to this new world, whatever it is, and we will be cyborgs in a way, right? That's the world we're going to be in. Now we're shifting right into that whole matrix. We're going to be in the matrix. Who's going to be in control is the question, and we're right in that the precipitous point.
Yep.
and I think we're here waiting to see. With crypto, what will determine a strong crypto is a crypto that's able to maintain itself conveniently. So it could it could sustain itself well, and also think about it. If there's gonna be a world war, we need to see how crypto will be engaged in this new world war, right? If this world war is gonna be cyber warfare, there's gonna be energy crisis. All of these things are needed to. You need a sustainable infrastructure to sustain crypto. Yep. You need all of that, right? It's gonna get attacked. Mm-hmm. The one that does best will be, the platform probably as the mirror of the best one in the future. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and I guess we'll see, bro. I think we need to figure out what we think crypto will be under a world war. Mm-hmm. If we understand that, I think we'll be better positioned for ourselves to understand, crypto and how it's going to shift and all of that, right? Because think of it, if we are in a world war, it's going to start with cyber warfare. Mm-hmm. The attacks, computer system attacks, infrastructure attacks. That's going to be the way it starts off first. Mm-hmm. Build upon that. So,
yeah. Well, we do a good job bringing light to it.
What I think people could get from what we're talking about, we're trying to really, you and I are really trying to figure out the next couple steps. We're trying to play a chess game here. Mm-hmm. We're playing a chess game because we really we're concerned about what's going to happen, and we want to be best prepared. We were in the military. We understood that there was times that we were not prepared, right? Mm-hmm. And when we were not prepared is when you realize, shit, I got to get my shit together. We have to figure something out. What's the what ifs, right? So our job right now is to look up the what ifs, look at what's going on right now, and take those clues as a mirror, or as a window to the future. Look at, hypothesize about it, mm-hmm. and come out to conclusions. With multiple conclusions, not just one tunnel, just multiple, and be like, okay, this is what's going on. Just looking at it objectively, and then prepare, and then spread this word so that others could also look and prepare, and maybe even add to or take away with what we do and do not see, because there's things that others also, right? It's like a web to create. We're trying to create this web of information, and we're trying to pinpoint everything together so we have a better vision. Mm-hmm. Because none of us know what's going on. We don't know what's going on because the media that we have is highly controlled. They're controlling the narrative. They have their own agendas. And sometimes those agendas go against our interest. So we need to look at alternative media, alternative voices. We have to look into other sources around the world. We have to look at what our enemies are saying about us. There's two things. When you want to know what's going on here in the United States that's negative, go look at a country that's an enemy of ours and look into their info that they're pumping out. Mm-hmm. You can see there's a lot of propaganda, but at the same time there's a lot of truth. You take that truth and then you look into yourself, right? You look into the nation, see, wait, so this is what's really going on, and this is not what we're saying. You're trying to put that puzzle together. Yep. So what we're trying to do is we're going to try to put this puzzle together and then show everybody what we think is the picture of the puzzle. Because we are definitely going into an economic depression. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you don't think that I'm a fucking economist or not. The numbers are there. The data's there. Look up the data. Look up history. Common sense. Use common sense. You don't need these subject matter experts telling you certain things. Remember, a lot of these subject matter experts from the Fed, Powell, you got all these people. They all have an agenda. You go to CNBC and listen to whatever the hell Kramer's saying all you want, but that doesn't fit your narrative. It fits theirs. You need to look at the narrative that is an alternative that aligns with the data, and then use common sense. You need to stop thinking about positive and negatives, and I'm optimist and I'm a pessimist. No. Put the optimism and pessimism aside and look at the reality of things. All right? The reality of things is we're going to economic situation, or we're going to have hyperinflation. Unemployment is going to continue to grow. Businesses are going to continue to close. There's going to be a power shift from corporations more to nationalism. And
we've got a crypto. We've got like a crypto, like a digital revolution on the horizon. So I think even navigating those waters can be hard for someone. They need someone to kind of just inform them on, where to place their bets, what's actually going to happen, and everything like that. So, I mean, that's the value that I see, is that, you could be listening to us and you could be getting advice. And if you have been by now, you're in a better place than 99% of the world, right? Because if you've been taking our advice. But,
yeah, you need to, you have to start looking at ways of, if there's two stimulus packages maybe going to pass, right? That means that, there's a Democrat one, there's a Republican-led one. At the end of the day, there's a consensus here, is that there's going to be a stimulus package giving us money. Mm-hmm. That's a consensus. So if that's the case, you need to figure out what the hell you're going to do with that. Are you going to go and purchase sunglasses and swimsuits and all of this shit with that money? Are you going to go and pay off, your debts and try to, be financially free and save some money because of what's going to happen down the line? That's what you got to start figuring out. Do you prefer to go and think that everything's going to go back to normal and be like, you know what? I'm going to go, I want to go on a nice trip to Europe, even though this is going on right now with that money. All right, have fun, do that. You think that's the best thing to do? Then go ahead. But right now, you have to start figuring out that the economy is not going to come back anytime soon. It's going to take a lot of work to get through it. So you need to use all of this as an armor, which is, I think, going back to that, we're trying to give armor to our folks, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to give them something to protect themselves. And these are just ideas. Don't mean that it's actually going to do it, but it might position yourself to do so. Because I prefer to be fucking prepared than unprepared. Because with what we saw now, like preppers, doomsday preppers. Those doomsday preppers did great throughout this whole situation because they always prepared for the worst. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need to continue to do. And that's with every aspect of life. Everything. To, micro to macro. Start to look at everything that's weak around you. Financially, morally, everything. And then start to fortify it. So that when the shit hits the fan, you could survive.
Right.
Right.
It's good. It's good, man. Cool, man. Yep. Now I got